So in our previous video, we scaffolded this basic Express app so that we can make our project a web app and receive web requests. And now we're going to be processing text prompts with Gemini. We're going to be processing text-based prompts with Gemini. First, let's implement our calls package. Yeah, let's make sure that our app is using that. Let's also set up body parser. Did I bring in body parser? No. So say const body parser equals require body parser. Okay, so we have that in place, and let's also set that up as a middleware. Let's tell our app to use it. So let's say body parser. We'll say body parser dot JSON. This is still all boilerplate Express stuff. That's nothing to do with Gemini. But because we're going to be receiving requests here, we need to set up this stuff so that we can safely receive our requests. Now, the first endpoint I'm going to be creating is the one that is going to process our text prompt. So it is going to be a post endpoint, and I'm going to call it process text. So let's set this to, or rather, let's put in our handler. Let's put in our handler, an arrow function. Here I'm going to say res. And because the Gemini request is an asynchronous process, I'm just going to put async here. So this is our first endpoint that's going to process our text. And now let's start working with Gemini. But how do we work with Gemini when we don't even have Gemini installed in our project? Yeah, in order to use Gemini, you can use the API. You can just call the API, call a normal request, set up your headers and everything. But it is best, or should I say recommended, to use the client libraries, to use the Gemini client libraries. So for this project, we're going to be using the Nodejs Gemini client library. We're going to be installing that in this project, and it's going to help us to set up Gemini in a more clean and reliable way and makes it easy to use. Yeah, great developer experience. So to do that, let's go to our command line. Let's clear this. So now we need to bring in the Gemini client library. I'll say npm install, and that library is at Google/generative-AI. Sorry about it. I don't know why my command line is being weird. At Google/generative-AI. So npm install at Google/generative-AI. Let's hit enter and let npm go to work and have that installed. So now that we have it installed, let's go back to VS Code. We can now go to VS Code and start working with our client library. So the first thing we're going to do is bring it in. So let's say const. I'm first going to open this curly braces because I'm going to be destructing whatever comes from it, because I just need to pick one thing. I'll say require at Google/generative-AI. That's the library we just installed. At Google/generative-AI. So we bring that in, and what we need from here is the object called Google Generative AI. Yep, Google Generative AI. That's what we need. Let me pull this to the side. Yeah, cool. So we have more screen real estate. So we have Google Generative AI. Bring that from here. That's what we need. Now we're going to be using this to configure a Gemini object, a Gemini API object. So just under the configuration of the body parser, I'm going to say const Google Generative AI equals new Google Generative AI. So we'll create a new object of the Google Generative AI, and that is going to require our API key. Yeah, our API key, which we stored in this .env file. So it's going to require this API key. So and remember, we give it the name API key. So let's go here. Let me bring this back once again. I'm just going to say process.env.api_key, because that's the name we gave it in our environment file. So that's what this needs. You just need to pass in the API key, and once you pass it in, we now have a new Google Generative AI object. Now we need to configure the Gemini object that is going to help us make our request. going to say const Gemini model equals. You can give these any names you want. Sometimes I have difficulty naming this, but I'm just trying to name it according to what it is. So const Gemini model, and we can set that to Google generative AI. That's this object that we created, this instance that we created, and we're going to call the get generative model method. So Google generative AI.get generative model. I'm going to call this method. And what this method requires is that we define the model we're going to be using. Yeah, is that we define the model we're going to be using. Now, Gemini has different types of models. I think it has 4 models. The first one is the Gemini Pro model. Then you have the Gemini Pro Vision model. And we have the embeddings model and the AQA model. Now, the Gemini Pro model can process text, and it can also handle multi-turn conversations, meaning that you can use it to build something like a chat. But the Gemini Pro Vision model can handle multimodal inputs. That means it can take in both text and it can take in images. But right now, at the point of recording this video, it cannot handle multi-turn conversations, meaning that you cannot use the Gemini Pro Vision model to create a chat application. So in case you're wondering, in case you are trying to create a chat application with images, no, you cannot do that with the Gemini Vision model. I think we'll go to our browser. Let me go to our browser and just say Google Gemini models. Yeah, I think you can see all that. Gemini models. Yeah, I think it should be here. Yeah. So we have the Gemini. This just came out, 1.5 Pro. So this just came out. It's still experimental. You see, preview only. But the ones that are stable are the Gemini Pro. Like I said, it can handle multi-tone conversations. But it can only take text. The Gemini Pro Vision can take text and images, can only output text, so it can't generate images, but it can handle multimodal inputs. Yeah, definitely. That's why it can take text and images. But it can't handle multi-tone conversational format. It can't do that, unlike the Gemini Pro. Then we have embedding and we have AQA. So let's go back to our project and keep setting this up. Here we define the model and we set that to Gemini Pro. Yeah, Gemini Pro. We set that to Gemini Pro. If you want to know the values to set it to, if you come back to this page, click that again. These are the values. So this is what you set for Gemini Pro, and this is what you set for Gemini Pro Vision. So now we want to use Gemini Pro because we just want to process text. So we come back here, paste that in. So we're using Gemini Pro. We're going to be using Gemini Pro to process this request. And now we have access to the model that is going to be helping us make the request. So how do we use this? We have this set up. How do we use it? So first, our prompt is going to be coming from the user. That's from the client. So let's say const prompt will be equal to rec.body.prompt. Yep, we have that. Let me just console.log it just for debugging purposes. So console.log the prompt. The prompt is going to be coming from the user, and we expect text as the prompt. So now that we have the prompt, we can make our request. So I can say const request equals, and remember I said it's going to be an asynchronous operation. That's why we put a sync here. So here we say await, and we're going to call our model, that's the Gemini model, and call the generate content. Yeah, generate content function on it. Yeah, generate content function. So we call this function, and we simply pass this function our prompt. Prompt. So we pass our prompt. That's all good. Now we can get our response. The const response that will be equal to await request dot response, I believe. Yeah. So with our response, we can then get our actual result. So let me say result. That's the result of the content generation using the model. Yeah. So we can get our result, and that will be a response dot text. Text as a function. Yeah, response dot text. So we have this, and once we have this result, we can send back the result to our client. We can send it back to our client. Okay. So this was a lot. So let me just run through everything once again. Let's go up. So the first thing we did was that we installed this library. That's the Google Generative AI library. We installed it. We got this object from it that we're going to be using to set up our model. Then we come down. We create a new instance of that object by passing in our API key. So we get the Google Generative AI object, and we use that instance to get access to our model. And for this operation, because we're going to be processing just text, we're using the Gemini Pro model. So we set that here, Gemini Pro, using the generative model function. So we get access to that. And inside our endpoint here, first we get our prompt from the client. We get it from the request body. And we use the Gemini model's generate content method to process our prompt. And we get the results as text and we send it back to the client. Yeah, that's what we are doing here. So let's save that. And now let's test it out using a client. I'm going to be using Postman to test this out because I don't have time to build a whole client just to show this. So Postman is going to be our guy. So let's pull up Postman. I thought I pulled it up. Okay, Postman, where are you? Okay, let's get Postman in place. Now as Postman loads up, let's rerun this server. Okay. Let's rerun this server. We have been okay. Node server JS. Oh, good. Node server JS. So our server is up. Make sure you run your server in case it's not up. So yeah, we are in Postman. Okay. I don't need all this sign-in process. Let me just continue with the lightweight API. Yeah. Let me just continue. Yep. We have Postman up. Now here we can make a request to our endpoint. Localhost port 3000. Localhost 3000. This is going to be a post request because our endpoint is post. Is there a way to get this bigger? Let me try. Let me see if there's a way. Okay, yeah, there's a way to make it bigger so you guys can see very well. So yeah, we have this. Let me just expand the screen. It's more visible. So we have our request here. And localhost 3000, and that goes to our endpoint. Our endpoint is process text. So let's copy that. Go back to Postman. Process text. Good. So post request, process text, and let's put our prompt. Our body. Let's use form data, raw, binary, whatever. Let me just go with let's go with raw. And let's go with JSON. So let's see. We have our request, say prompt. And what can we tell Gemini to do? Let's say who is Joe Biden? Yeah, who is Joe Biden? Yeah. Let's Gemini just tell us who Joe Biden is. Okay. Who is Joe Biden? Now let us hit send and hope this works. So we hit send, it's going, our request is going, nothing has blown up yet, so it means that, yeah, this seems to be going well. Let's check our command line to see, yeah, with Joe Biden, that's our prompt, and our response is back. Yeah, our response is back. So here's our response, Joseph Robinette. Oh, this is middle name, Robinette, interesting. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., born November 1942, is an American politician who is the 46th and current president of the United States. Before becoming the president, he served as vice president to Barack Obama from 2009 to 2017. So yeah, you can stick around in case you want to read more about Joe Biden. But here we can see Gemini has been able to respond to a prompt that we gave it. We told it to tell us about who Joe Biden is. We sent that prompt and it processed it and it gave us a generative AI reply. So that is how to process text using the Gemini model and Node.js. In the next video, we're going to be processing images. Yeah, that is going to be fun. We're going to be processing images. We're going to be sending an image to Gemini and we're going to have Gemini tell us what the image is all about. So see you in that next video.